Well, this is a different introduction. I am sat here inside Union Square Shopping Centre in Aberdeen, but that's not the exciting bit. It's what I'm actually sat inside. Does it give you a clue? Welcome back to the Cybertruck. Hello again, YouTube, and welcome back to Just Get a Tesla. And today I am lucky enough to be sat inside a Cybertruck here in the Union Square Shopping Centre in Aberdeen. Once again, my very good friends at Tesla Aberdeen have sorted me out, cheers Robbie, to be able to let me sit exclusively inside the Cybertruck and tell you what I think of it. Because, well, how can I put it? When I looked around it in Glasgow a couple of years ago, and I'll just drop a couple of clips in, I was blown away by just the sheer bulk of it, but I couldn't actually figure out what it was supposed to do. It was just wild. But I think a year or so in, we know exactly what it's supposed to do. And how can I put this? Whether you like it or not, whether the shape appeals to you or not, whether you just think it's daft, this vehicle is the future. So I actually think the first thing that we need to do is to have a little bit of a look around the thing on the inside, because this isn't what I had a chance to do last time. Okay, so I'm sat in the Cybertruck in what actually would be my driving position. I've adjusted the seats, I've adjusted the mirrors. This is exactly where I would have it. And what can I say? This thing is freaking huge, man. I mean, the sheer amount of forward space that you've got in front, right? The dashboard is like several dashboards. I'm assuming that this is kind of like there'll be speakers and things somewhere under here maybe, or well, there's definitely a speaker there. So I don't know, but either way, this thing just goes forward forever. The point as well is, how can I put this? I cannot see where the front of this goes at all, right? It's a long way in front. You can see that they have set it up like it's a Mars rover, which is kind of cool because, again, how can we put this? Tesla and SpaceX together are really cool. And of course, SpaceX have just taken delivery of what appear to be hundreds of Cybertrucks, which again, I understand why they've done it. It's kind of cool. The other interesting thing I've just spotted on here, look, Grok. We cannot have Grok in the UK or in Europe, as I understand it, but Cybertruck has got it. That is already something that's different. Straight away, if you go into the menu on this, look, everything on it is different just because the font is different. There are so many different menu settings and things on here that you do not get in a normal Tesla. And some of these are like, wowzers. Okay, this vehicle though has done, look at this, it's done 69 miles. So this has basically been transported around everywhere because of course it's not legal in Europe. But look, I've already said the dashboard is enormous. From a front seats perspective, that's cool. You've got this open space here, which is kind of, I suppose, what they're trying to do with the new Model Y standard weird car thing. Charging for your phone is here. We've got cup holders, and then we've got the usual vast space of armrest to be able to get inside. And then, hang on a second, let me just spin this all the way around the back. An awful lot of space, although it's got to be said that headroom is actually tighter than I was thinking, because obviously you've got this wedge shape and then it falls all the way backwards, but headroom's actually not quite as big up here as I was expecting that it was going to be. But there is no getting away from the fact that this car is absolutely huge, and it's not a car, is it? It's a truck. So let's have a climb into the back, because I've got the seats here set up exactly as I would have had it, okay? Let's have a climb into the back, and it's a button push, and the door kind of soft opens itself. And then pull yourself down. Oh, this is good. Put yourself into the back, and wow, I have got, look, acres and acres and acres and acres and acres of space. This thing is absolutely huge, genuinely massive. I mean, look, I've walked around it on the outside and thought, wow, it's big. And it is big. But I hadn't quite realized just how big until you climb into the back and realize that you could have an absolute party in here. Let's talk about technology for a minute, because this vehicle is very literally cutting edge. No, I'm not talking about the sharp edges that you've got on the vehicle where it is actually quite sharp, okay? Park that for a minute. From a technology perspective, this car has got on board it so many new pieces of technology that this is absolutely the future direction. Let's pick these off one by one in terms of what I consider to be important. And actually, bizarrely, I'm going to put 48 volt internal power on the top of the list. Look, we have had the same electrical system on cars for a long time. And that is at the point where you didn't have a lot of electrics inside a car, but you still had the same little weedy 12 volt battery firing out a little bit of power to be able to obviously power the starter motor and maybe have a few lights in here and there. But now cars are literal mobile computing labs with motors on everything, with computer power that would blow away anything that would have been conceived of when weedier power systems were conceived. So the idea of upping the voltage makes sense for a whole load of reasons. Look, my Volvo S90 of 8 years ago had two 12 volt batteries because one simply wasn't enough. There's other cars where that's the case. They've already upped the voltage on quite a few of them. So my Tesla Model Y has got a 16 volt low voltage battery rather than 12. But this is 48 volts. And what that does is two things. One, it gives you a huge amount of additional power to be able to power all of the systems inside the car. And the second one is that, how can I put it? Where you've got a higher voltage, there is less resistance. As I understand it, I'm not an electrician. And that means you can have less wiring. The wiring looms in modern cars are absolutely complex pieces of craziness that, as many auto mechanics will tell you, is probably the reason why the car will get written off at some point in the future. So having less wires because you've got a higher voltage makes sense. And all right, you've then got to have higher voltage motors than anybody else has got. So you can't just buy all of the parts off the shelf. But I'm sat inside a Cybertruck. Very little of this is coming off the shelf. Somebody has had to go and think, what exactly are we doing with this? So the 48 volt system, I can just see catching on and going on to so many other vehicles. The second one is the fact that this is basically an internal local access network. So everything is computer controlled, okay? And not in terms of wires and specific wires to do particular things, but a little bit like the network in your house. You've got a computer point and a wire that feeds digital information to a different one. Again, less wiring, less complexity, less to go wrong. And we know computer control works because every time you get on a plane, the thing is fly-by-wire these days. Everything on it is done by a computer now. You've got to go onto something very old for it to still have any kind of mechanical linkages in there. Everything is electronics except for cars. Tesla are leading the way with that. The next one, and this has been a bit controversial where people have talked about it, is the fact that this has got no mechanical connection between the steering wheel and the steering rack. Again, it's digital. The steering wheel is connected to a motor, which takes the feedback, and then digital information goes to another motor, which is on the steering rack, and that steers it. And that enables the truck to be able to do a number of different things. First of all, from a packaging perspective, you do not have to design a car where you have got a physical piece of metal connecting the steering wheel and the steering rack. You don't need to bother. You can put all of the steering rack and the steering wheel and anything else wherever you want. Literally package them where you see fit. From a design perspective, it's a huge leap forward. I'm talking about the fact that, how can I put this, at different speeds the wheels turn at different amounts. In fact, let's jump in the front and I'll show you. Okay, jump into the front. And it's the same thing again. You've got this little push thing and the door just soft opens. So look, the steering wheel. And we'll zoom back out a little bit. This is not connected in any way, which means that where you turn this, and I can't do because we're parked and we're literally in a shopping mall, but where you turn this, instead of you know how much lock you need to put on at different speeds, the amount of lock that you need changes depending on where you are and what you're doing. And for a lot of people, that might sound quite scary, but genuinely, the feedback that I've had in terms of the reviews that I've seen, and I've seen quite a lot of videos on the Cybertruck, the feedback is that it just becomes intuitive really quickly. And that is a huge, huge, huge thing to develop. It genuinely is. This, by itself, is the future. Or at least it's the future from a car's perspective. There's already various agricultural and industrial uses of completely disconnected drive-by-wire steering, where again, from a packaging perspective, there is no steering lock. There is basically hydraulics, usually on industrial machinery, but you've already got it where it is disconnected. One of the things that people say about Cybertruck in terms of how it can't be driven anywhere in Europe is because of this disconnection between Mr. Steering Wheel here and the wheels. But that actually isn't true, because it's already been allowed in agricultural and industrial uses. And Tesla aren't even the first manufacturer to try this. Lexus have a car that doesn't have a mechanical connection between the wheel and the steering rack. It's just that they haven't as yet got the thing going in Europe, but it is coming. And this is the point, right? With a lot of these things, I think the reason why they haven't appeared yet is because the legacy manufacturers aren't ready, and especially in Europe. The legacy manufacturers are driving all of the restrictions on things like the UNECE regulations. It's the legacy guys who are holding up full self-driving. As soon as BMW gets something that they want, if you've noticed, it immediately gets approved. When Tesla wants it, oh no, hold on. And it will be the same with the steering thing. Once one of the German manufacturers wants to do something like this from a packaging perspective, then everybody will suddenly be doing it. So Tesla, once again, showing the technology first with the Cybertruck. I think while I'm here, it would be rude not to have a look at some of the Cybertruck only things that are actually on here. So I'm obviously very used to using the big Tesla screen. I know other people hate it, but hey, you're wrong. But look, we've got a whole load of different things on here. What have we got? Ride height. So you can adjust the ride height. Obviously the tonneau cover, I'm not allowed to open that. So I'm not going to be showing you inside the bed because it is closed and it's staying closed because we're on display in the middle of a shopping mall. But things like, you know, mirrors, steering, all of those things, they're fairly normal. Obviously from a gear perspective, we're in neutral with hold on there. I totally get that. Child locks, all of those things are fairly normal. Ride height is very new. Dynamics gives you, well, I like custom and off-road settings. I can only imagine what that one actually gives you. So yeah, here we go. Off-road mode. There are some videos that I'll try and drop in now of Cybertruck doing some ridiculous things off-road. This is a very capable vehicle, despite the fact that it's absolutely enormous. And then of course you've got ride height where you can choose lower or higher, as well as the usual kind of things, slip start. Applying brakes when regenerative braking is limited. Well, you think it would do that one anyway. And then auto lower, so that as you're getting out, it lowers itself. Towing and hauling. Look, this is where the thing gets really impressive. You can tow enormous amounts of things in this vehicle. Although, as I understand it, it has disappointed some of the Americans who need to be able to tow Mars behind them and still do 500 miles without stopping. But that's probably a little bit of a push in terms of where the thing goes. From a charging perspective, all the menus are exactly the same. Look, it's not giving me any kind of useful information on this, apart from the fact that it's burned 3,381 watt hours per mile since it was charged. But then again, it's running all of the systems and it's got the lights on and all the rest of it, and it's going nowhere. So I don't think it's actually that thirsty. Outlets. We have got various power outlets, and look, you can turn these off and you can turn them on. And this is really useful. You can actually switch these things on and off, which in my car, I've got keep outlets on. I don't have the option to be able to switch individual things off. That, if that was brought onto mainstream Tesla, that would be very useful. Autopilot, this doesn't actually have. As I understand it, autopilot hasn't really been enabled for various Cybertrucks, and they're certainly waiting for them. And you wouldn't get it in Europe anyway. Locks is the same, lights is the same, seats is the same, display, that's broadly the same thing, isn't it? So it's mainly at the top end of the screen where things get really different. But either way, the graphics look fantastic. Here's a point, right? Could we please have the option to have this font on a normal Tesla? Because this just looks cool, right? If you can get it where you have got, how can I put this, right? The option to go on to Mars. Could I please have the option to pick a different font? So while I'm sat here in the front, we should probably talk about the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is that no one's really buying Cybertrucks. And there's been a bit of debate on X, and hi, I've been doing some of the debate on this front, because Tesla have a forecast to sell 250,000 units a year. And in the last 12 months, they sold 42,000, which is 17%, which isn't great. But you think, hey, the thing's going to ramp and it's going to increase, isn't it? Well, no, because quarter 3 versus quarter 3 the previous year was down by 63%. So this is a vehicle that isn't selling in anything like the kind of numbers that Tesla thought it was going to do. Although, as friends on X keep pointing out, it is by far the best-selling electric truck in the US market. So I get it. I totally get it. It's not selling as much, but it's there and it's increasing. But there is one thing that's missing with the Cybertruck. And here's the point. Tesla need to build a smaller Cybertruck, because this is too big for not just the UK market, for the European market, but this is too big for most of the world. It's gone on sale in Dubai, so that doesn't matter in terms of size, because in Dubai, basically with the money, you can drive anything, but it hasn't gone on sale anywhere else. It's not gone on sale in Australia, and as I understand it, they sell an awful lot of utes, which is kind of what this is. So I think a smaller version is what's needed, because when you look into the global markets, it's not the Ford F-150 sized vehicle, which this is, that sells. It's the Ford Ranger mid-size pickup truck. If Tesla built a smaller version of this, I genuinely think they'd have a hit on their hands. And look, in the first video I did on Cybertruck, recorded something where I said, take my money now, because I've got a bit of a fetish for trucks, and I do have a bit of a fetish for them, but I live in the countryside where there are an awful lot of pickup trucks on the road, and they are driven by people who use them for what they're designed for. It's not a hairdresser's car, as sometimes people say when they live in suburbia. This is a working vehicle, and honestly, I think a smaller version of this would sell in huge numbers, but there are some issues that they need to sort out. And the biggest one is the sheer size of the thing. This, hang on, let's go and walk at it from the front, and I'm going to keep walking until I actually run out of Cybertruck. This is a long vehicle. It's not the longest thing on our roads. You can buy a panel van that's as long as this. You can buy a van that's as wide as this. So it's not so much that it's too big, although panel vans like that, quite frankly, are too big, but we put up with them. It's just that it's not really usable for most people's needs, because yes, we've got a huge bed and I can't show you inside it, but the bed can take everything you've got. But if you're really going to struggle to park the thing, you're going to have issues. And that's why, even in European markets where you could get something like an F-150 or a Dodge, people still tend to get Ford Ranger sized trucks. Why? Because they're the best compromise between load carrying and actually being able to fit it onto European roads. Then we've got the other issue. The sharpness of the design. Well, I mean, look, I think the thing looks science fictionally stunning, okay? I know it's a divisive design. I know it gets a lot of abuse. Some of it's come from me at various points in the past, but when you're here looking at it, there is just something that makes you think, blimey. But, this has got basically a stainless steel exoskeleton, okay? It's a load of stainless steel panels bolted onto a frame, which makes it super strong. I mean, genuinely, you are going to be okay if you're driving this car and you have a bit of a bump. The thing that you bump into might not be quite as okay, but that's often the case with bigger cars, newer cars, stronger cars versus older and more fragile ones. But the surfaces, these metal edges, I mean, look, it's not sharp, I'm not cutting myself, but it is an exposed edge, and that is a bit of a problem. And it's all around. I mean, there are exposed edges on this pretty much everywhere, and this is the bit where all of the European regulators get a bit worried about it, because I mean, look, that is sharp edge and a sharp edge in a point, and then another one going down. If you hit something with that, they're not going to have a good time. And there's all kinds of workarounds being talked about, even just putting like rubber strips and things like that on it, but that's not going to cut it. If Tesla are going to do a smaller Cybertruck, then it's going to need a fundamental redesign. And you might say, do they actually want to do that? But apparently they do. Okay, to wrap things up, what do I really think about the Cybertruck? You've got to come and experience it yourself, okay? You've got to come and actually see what the thing is like in the metal, because you know you get some vehicles where you can't really see what the thing is like until you actually see it in the metal. This is one of those. It is the most preposterous vehicle that I think I've ever seen, but at the same time, it is the most awe-inspiringly brilliant vehicle. There is something completely mad about the Cybertruck, but that's why it's brilliant, because nobody else other than Tesla and Elon Musk would actually go out there and build this thing. You might sketch something like this and say, yeah, let's design something that's just angular lines, but you wouldn't put it into production, especially where it's got all of these new technologies and features and things on it. But that's the point. And I think a lot of people have missed this, probably including myself. Cybertruck is a test bed. It is so leading edge that it has come off the edge and it's kind of somewhere in front of it. And the market simply hasn't caught up yet. And the automotive industry simply hasn't caught up yet. Even Tesla haven't caught up yet because, well, okay, let me show you. Tesla didn't incorporate any of the technology from Cybertruck onto the Model Y Juniper. It doesn't have steer-by-wire or 48-volt low-voltage systems or an 800-volt charging setup. None of those technologies went onto the best-selling car in the world because it's too big a risk, but they are going onto the Cybercab. Where Cybertruck started, Cybercab becomes the way forward. This is leading the way for what Tesla do next, but I think I can go further than that. This is leading the way for what everybody does next, because it can't be too long before your car has got Cybertruck technology built inside it. And on that future optimism note, we're going to leave it there. If you've enjoyed this, then please make sure you click the subscribe button, because believe me, I'm not doing this for the good of my health, as fun as this is. More subscribers, more comments, liking, share the video, all of those things are really appreciated. And I will see you back here very soon on Just Get a Tesla.